many of the things I've done, whether that be in sport or in my career, have never really been planned. They've just happened from that point of view. I started as a trainee accountant in Volkswagen UK 30 years ago, and nobody set out to be, okay, in 30 years time I want to be a managing director of the Skoda business in India. It was never a plan. I never planned to go to China anyway. I guess that I surprised myself with my own career development, with my own achievements, and other people recognized it, and then my career moved on from there. So no, I never really planned anything. In sport, I didn't really plan it, and in business and life, I didn't really.
How has it been for you you're a business leader? What are the challenges you've faced and how have you handled it?
I think, it's been, it started off very difficult because, I'm used to this, the physical contact with people, visiting dealers, talking to customers, talking to technicians at dealerships, of course, in this business, and also leading a team of people and leading it, being there, being in meetings, being in social circles, etc., etc. And that's all gone. So we run everything from here, from Skype. I was taken back from India at the start of this, and I'm living here in Prague at the moment. So it's been difficult, but I think over time we've got used to it. The team has got used to it, and we have a daily call. To me, it's 6 o'clock in the morning, but for those guys, it's 9:30, where we go through what we're doing. We have updates, etc., as to what's going on, and then I have a series of meetings during the day. So it can be up to 12 or 14 discussions in the day where we're leading things. So it's very obviously task focused. It's focused on what we're doing, how we're moving forward, how we're preparing for India 2.0. But what I think is missing and is very hard to replicate is the whole, the personal interaction, the social part of the working environment, and this is missing. And so as a leader, we've got to always look out for our teams, and not only are they doing a good job for us, are they delivering what we need them to deliver, but how are they mentally? What is their mental state at the moment? How are they coping with the whole lockdown? Because many people, they've moved from, a guy might move from Patna to go to university in Delhi, and then he comes to Mumbai to work in an organization like ours. His family are in Patna. He's on his own in Mumbai. A lot of his social circle is around his work. It's around coming to the office. It's around talking to people. It's around drinking coffee, having lunch with people, perhaps going to dinner in the evening with people, etc., celebrating people's birthdays in the office. All of these are actually important to the work-life environment that we have, and actually they're important to people's mental well-being. This is in effect gone. It's gone completely. So these guys, and this same guy is sitting in his office, sitting in his apartment in Mumbai. He's on his own. For the first time, he's having to, sort his own food out. He's not inviting his maid into the house, etc., etc. And, it's quite soul destroying. So I think, what we've got to do as leaders during this time is really look out for people's mental stability, and to make sure that they're coping well. And that's what I've been trying to do as well. So we've been doing a lot of online training to help people in their personal development. We've looked at best practice in other business and other industries. We've done things like book clubs. So, everybody's read a management book, and then we've come online and I've discussed the management. Can I tell you a secret? One of these books, I actually just watched YouTube videos and didn't actually read it. But the point is, we've discussed the books, we've discussed what we learned, what we thought of things, etc., etc. And I think that does those sort of things have helped. Doing that sort of thing regularly, doing these quizzes. You can use various computer programs to do quizzes. So, and I tend to lose them all because they tend to be about India and things like this. I'm not bad on the cricket questions. Being English, I could do some of that, but. So we've tried to do that. You've got to keep these things doing regularly, because, it's easy to start for the first few months, and then when you get on, you tend to stop or you drift back until. So you've got to make a personal effort to think, right. And sometimes I've said to people, look, go home. Let's get some permission. let's go from Mumbai down to Kerala, be with your family, because this is not the time to be stuck in an office in Mumbai. So I think that's been one of the challenges, is looking after people's personal and mental well-being at this time.
And you've managed quite a bit of launches also, isn't it? I mean, critical launches
We have,
with
and
this.
we've been
Yes.
creative. We've been
Yeah.
innovative on that. So, for example, on the 26th of May, we launched our BS6 offerings. Originally, they were planned in three launches in March, April, and May. We planned all these on the 26th of May. I went into a recording studio in Prague. I presented to an empty room on a green background, standing on a black disc. And afterwards, the wizards in Mumbai stuck the whole thing together with pictures of cars, gearboxes, engines, and things like that. And it worked really well. It was very successful. We were the first people to do this. Other people copied it afterwards. And when we did it again, when we launched the automatic cars as well. So this was engaging. You've got to be innovative. You've got to continue to engage with your customers. You've got to continue to engage also with your dealers. So we've got a lot of meetings with dealers online as well. Small meetings, one-to-ones, or 5 or 6 dealers at a time, get their opinions and their views. Because when I talk about the fact that I feel responsible for the team I've got in
Right.
Mumbai, Delhi, and Bangalore, I also feel responsible for the welfare of actually all of the people working in our dealers pan India.
Right.
And from technicians to security guys to car washers and also to salespeople. So we've been trying to do a lot of personal development and training with those guys as well.
And the decisions, right? That must have been really difficult, isn't it? I mean, taking decisions, difficult decisions.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if it's much different, to be honest, because I've made some we've made some difficult decisions during this time. I've Unfortunately, I've had to terminate some dealers during this time. I've had some difficult staff decisions during these times, and we've done these all like this, sitting in front of a computer and having these tough decisions with people. Life goes on, business goes on, life goes on during this lockdown. There was, during the early days of the lockdown, we put everything on hold. So we put our dealer renewal program on hold. But then it came to a stage we can't carry on doing this. We have to get this business ready for India 2.0. And as a result, we have to have the right partners in place. And that means I have to have some difficult conversations with some dealers who are not aligned to my thinking around customer centricity. And that's why I've had those conversations, and we've had to let some dealers go as a result of that. And I have done it through Skype.
So, what is the one key lesson perhaps that you learned, unlearned during this pandemic?
To be honest, the most important thing to learn is it is perfectly possible to work from home. Working
Mm-hmm.
from home has a role to play. And I think, if you go forward, you think I'm spending 2 hours a day probably commuting every day. Now, obviously, that's important to get to the office, and I like to live where I like to live in Mumbai.
Right.
But at the end of the day, that 2 hours is also 2 hours out of my day. So 1 or 2 days a week, I'm also going to encourage my team, and I'll do it myself, to carry on working from home, to use that time and to use the skills we've learnt in terms of how you react to people on the phone, how you work on Skype. You've got to allow time for people to speak and make their contributions, etc., etc.
What do you think of this whole thing of work-life balance?
I think I haven't had a problem with this in terms of work-life balance. My wife is here most of the time. She's working at the school at the moment. She's back at 4 o'clock. So from that point onward, she says, right, what are we doing? And we're going for a walk, or we're going out to dinner, or we're watching something on Netflix to relax, something like that. So, in a way, she is forcing me. And she will say, stop working now. I'm cooking dinner or something like this. So that's happening. And I also believe that, we need to keep our bodies healthy and fit at this time as well. So I'm still going out on my bike sometimes, and also going for a run. And you can do this at the moment. I've got a bit of advantage that by 4 o'clock I finished, because 4 o'clock here in Prague is 7:30 in India.
Right,
So my
right.
team have finished by then. I finished by 4 o'clock. So although I have to go to bed early, I'm a bit boring. I go to bed at 9:30 at the moment because I get up so
Oh,
early. The,
wow.
the, the
Okay.
point is, I can actually get out and do some exercise. So I can get on my bike, and it's been daylight. It's been a beautiful, been quite a nice September weather-wise. So yeah, work-life balance is important, and I'm encouraging my team to make sure they've got time for this. And taking a day's holiday also, nobody wants to use their holiday at the moment. because they can't travel. Normally people would use their holiday to visit family or go to Kerala on the
Right.
backwaters or go to whatever people like to do on their holidays, travel to Europe or whatever. You can't do that. But I still want my team to take holiday. You
Mm-hmm.
still need to take a couple of days here. You're still taking a week off for Diwali, and I don't care because you need that break. You need to switch off.
How many times have you done an Ironman?
Once, my wife said never again.
You're
I was at the prime of my athletic, in inverted commas, performance was, in back almost over 10 years ago now, when I completed the Ironman triathlon in Austria. And, since then I've run a few marathons and a few smaller races, but nothing as big as that. Partly because the physical time that you need to invest in it is
sure.
so much. If you're training for something like an Ironman, I was training twice a day. In the morning you would go for a swim, in the evening you would go for a run or something like that. And it's hard to find that much time. But yet it's still important to stay fit. It's important to work on that. I think if you stay fit and healthy, it actually reflects in your energy for work. It reflects in your energy for work and your
Right.
energy for life. So I'm still running. I'm still going out on my bike. I meet friends sometimes. I've got a couple of expat friends that I meet here in Prague, and we go biking. So that's still definitely taking place. Not to the same magnitude it did before, but definitely I'm still keeping fit. In the late 90s, I was a marshal at the London Marathon. And I looked at that and think, I can do this. And a year later, I did it. I really surprised myself because I was quite quick. I think I did 3 hours and 20 minutes, which was
Wow.
not bad for a first marathon.
Right.
And from then, I got pretty addictive. So I would train a lot, 5-6 times a week. I had a coach for running. I had a coach for swimming. I cycled with a group of people, and I threw literally everything into this. And I represented the county in the cross country races and things like that. I did cycling 100
Wow.
miles at the weekend fairly regularly. So yeah, it was a big part of my life. From there, started with running, and then probably moved on to triathlon once it was clear that I wasn't getting any faster. And I think the biggest thing holding me back, I couldn't do anything about. It was genetics. I mean, there becomes a stage when you can't train anymore. You can't, getting a new coach is not going to make any difference anymore. So that's when I started doing the swimming properly. I was coached for the swimming, and then I took on small triathlons, and then I did the big Ironman in 2007. So the first swim I did that was open water. This means not in a swimming pool, but in a lake or a river. This was in the river in England, and I remember this. It was cold, it was dirty, it was green, and you've got to put your head in the water and swim 1,500 meters along this river. So I stayed right at the back, and I let everybody go, and then I did my swim at the end. The first London Marathon was just incredible. I remember finishing that and thinking, this must be what it's like, walking out as a cricketer onto Lord's, for a World Cup final, because you feel like they're all for you. You feel like everybody is cheering for you when you come around the corner of the Cutty Sark or along the Mall. So I'd say the first London Marathon was the most memorable for me.
Wonderful.
I did New York as well. That was good.
Yeah, the majors, you mean, right?
Yeah, the big marathons are incredible.
Yeah. Okay. You speak of cricket with so much of fondness. How come you never played? Or have you played
I
it?
played a little bit, not very well though. I think the problem is that I played in the garden. As you know, we lived on a farm, so I played in the garden with my brother and friends. But I was never very good, so I never took cricket anywhere. I used to watch it with my granddad. We would go to watch Northamptonshire in England and play cricket. He thought it was really funny because we were 17. I was 17 at the time, and I would go in as a junior and pay the junior admission price and then go to the bar, which my granddad thought was hilarious. So I've watched a bit of cricket. When I was in Mumbai during the last IPL, not what's happening now, but before, I used to invite my team round. We would watch the IPL, and I watched the final in the Irish House in Bandra with Mumbai Indians as well. So Chennai.
Cricket is
so
a
yeah.
religion.
So I follow cricket. I like cricket. I know it's an incredible religion, and it's actually quite nice that unlike my German colleagues and my Czech colleagues, I can talk about cricket. We had a, I remember we had a, there was a presentation once, and there was, as directors, we were lined up on a stage, and the factory team were asking us questions. And one of the German guys said he understood. He'd been here now for 2 years, and he even understood cricket. And I looked at him. I said, "Really?" And he said, "Yes, I understand cricket." I said, "Could you explain to the audience the Duckworth-Lewis method?" And he kind of looked at me, and then he realized he didn't understand cricket at all. The only person really that uses Zachary is my mother, and then she says something like, "Zachary." I'm thinking, "Oh, what have I done?" Still at 50, I ask, "What have I done?" So my granddad had this poultry farm until about 1977. My father took this over, and we had a poultry farm. So I think we had over 10,000 hens at the time laying. It was during the time
Wow.
when you were allowed to keep two chickens in a small box like this. You can't do this now, and I
Yes,
think that's
yes.
fair enough.
Yeah.
Chickens need space to run around. I mean, but that was during the 1970s. It was. So we lived on a poultry farm. So I love the space. I love being outside. I had a vegetable patch. I had some chickens I kept myself. I actually used to keep show chickens. So I used to keep chickens, and I
Right.
used to breed them, and I used to have show quality chickens, and I
Wow.
would sell their offspring for lots of money because of their show quality. And that's what I did as a young boy. I did the hunting. I went fishing. I went shooting, and
Wow, that is
I was
some
an
life.
outdoor kind of guy. That's what I did. So
That is some education in itself, isn't it, Zach?
it was great fun. I mean, we were, climbing trees and picking apples all day long. And Mum used to pay me for each bucket of apples I picked. So we picked apples, and I worked on the farm, and it was good fun. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed being outside, and I still remember very fondly my childhood from that point of view. And I
Right,
went
right.
back in August. In August, I was lucky enough to go to England for a week, and I actually stayed there for a week, and it was great because I spent one day. I worked most of the time, as I said, but I spent one day fly fishing with my dad
Oh,
on a lake. That was really nice. It was very relaxing, just fly fishing with my dad. Something we used to do when I was in my early 20s. And then and then after work, most days, I spent helping my dad with his bees. So my dad has
wow.
around 15 beehives, and I tell you, when you get those frames full of honey, they weigh about 15 kilos. I mean, my dad is almost 80 now, and I don't know how he does it.
How does he
But,
do that? I was going
so
to ask you that. Wow.
and they're really heavy. I mean, I don't know. I mean, he's still quite strong, and so I helped him with the honey. But yeah, so it was a really nice week that I spent in early
Touch wood.
August.
Is there a dichotomy in terms of your roots being quite green and you belonging to an industry which kind of contributes to a lot of gray? I mean, in terms of the pollution bit, have you been able to kind of work around personally there?
I think that if you look at the car industry, it has changed a lot over the last 10 years, and
Right.
it will change even
Yes.
more over the next 10 years. If you look at recent cars that we've launched, such as the rapid 1 liter TSI, so we have got more power, more efficiency, and more torque out of a 1 liter three-cylinder engine than we had out of a 1.6 four-cylinder engine. So by definition, we have already engineering this kind of fuel saving technology and better environmental engines. That's happening already through TSI technology. And of course, hybrid technology is coming in more and more from us and also competitors. And we will move towards electric cars in the future. So the motor industry will, at the end of the day, produce environmentally and clean cars in the future. The technology has to be right. It will happen. The price of batteries needs to come down before we can really produce competitive cars for people. And and of course, people need to be ready to buy electric cars. But it will happen, and Volkswagen Group and Skoda will be there at the forefront of what is happening. Governments will also encourage it. I mean, when we've seen environmental cars being launched, particularly in countries. If you take Norway, for example, In Norway, 50% of the cars being sold are electric cars because the government have said that's what will happen. It's the same. You go to cities in China, like Shenzhen and Shanghai, where a very high proportion of the cars are now electric cars because the government have huge tax incentives. So governments also need to have the right policies in place and the right infrastructure in place to encourage electric cars. It will happen, and Skoda and Volkswagen Group will also always be part of that.
I mean, since we are on this whole green future strategy that even Skoda has adopted, I'm just very curious to know what are your personal thoughts on Tesla and Elon Musk in particular?
I think every industry needs someone to shake things up a bit. Right. And, we just talked about Richard Branson, who shook up many of the industries that he entered as well. And Elon Musk has shaken up the motor industry with what he's been doing. They've designed fantastic cars. They're fast. They're a lot of fun. Right. And you have to admire what's been achieved. And it shook the industry up a bit, which is also healthy because competition is good. And I certainly admire what he's achieved. He's a risk taker that you've seen as well. He's invested in all sorts of different industries at the same time, and it makes everybody raise their game when someone comes in and shakes things up like that.
Right. Absolutely. In fact, the Skoda's Mission to Mars campaign, I think, was quite tongue-in-cheek. Right up there.
There's lots of tongue-in-cheek things you can do in marketing. Is good fun. Yeah, exactly.
Right. Yeah. Which is your first car?
My first car was a 1975 Mini. It was in British Leyland Bracken. That's the color, but that's just the fancy name for brown. So that was my first car. Like many young people, I smashed this car up after 6 months. I remember it cost me £300 to buy the car. This was in England. And it cost me £350 to insure the car because that's what happens when you're young. So that was my first car. We had a lot of fun in that car. Myself and my brother. I had a younger brother, and we used to go out and about in that because I lived 3 miles out of town. So there was no buses around. So to get anywhere, we had to drive. So as soon as we got a car between us, then we had freedom. We could go anywhere and be much more free. So that was my first car, which unfortunately I smashed up.
In 6 months.
In 6 months, yeah. I'm sure many people do. Come on.
So do you do any farming? I mean, not that you do it any longer, but do you have any, some dream or something that you get back to the farm one day?
I think that, if we think about this, that I certainly like being outdoors. I like the space, so yes, ultimately when I retire in a week's time, in a few years' time, I would quite like to, have a vegetable patch and get some peace and quiet. I keep some chickens. Yeah. So certainly I would like to do that one day. Yes, I would tell you. Will my wife watch this? I'm not sure. If you've got passion for a goal and passion for something you want to achieve and energy for it, you will stand a lot better chance of achieving it than if you just play lip service at it. Yeah. And it's also about setting goals. So if you have a goal of running a marathon, you build a plan working back from the marathon, you follow this plan religiously, and then you will complete the marathon. You will not fail because you will be prepared. Yeah. Right. And if you have a plan to sell 100,000 cars, you say, right, what does it take to sell 100,000 cars? Okay, the right product, the right price, the right dealer network, the right marketing to promotions, the right campaign, the right people. Then you start putting a plan together to achieve that. And if you put that plan together, you will achieve that. The only way you won't achieve it is if you missed one of those things along the way. And if you do, then you need to correct things. But put a plan together, work towards a plan, and you will achieve it.
Your sports bar venture, of course, we just touched upon it briefly in this fun facts segment, but how did you come about it? Why did you think of investing in this sports bar?
It was never a plan. It was never an idea. I remember, right. I think we were driving back from Austria. We'd been skiing for the weekend with the girls at the whole family at the time. And I remember picking up a phone call from a friend of mine, a Norwegian New Zealand friend, and he said, "What about buying this sports bar?" And we ummed and ahed and we thought about it, and then we got a bit carried away, and I think we got a bit excited about the prospect of owning a sports bar.
Okay.
And we probably didn't really look at the numbers quite as well as we should have done, because if we'd looked at the numbers quite as well, we'd have seen there were some big holes in it. So, the sports bar, we had very high level of sales. Sales were fantastic. People supported us. We had all the sports. We had live music. We had quizzes. Everything worked really well. There was a reasonably good management team there, but our costs were completely out of control. And I think that's because we had no experience to draw on.
Right.
So, we didn't know when the chef said, "I need this many people," we said yes, because we had nothing to draw on. It's only when I got talking to other sports bars, he said, "Why have you got twice as many people as me?" And I'm thinking, yeah, why have I got twice as many people as him? And I didn't have the experience to draw on that says, you don't need, 4 chefs. You can do 2 chefs or you can do 3 chefs. And you just make them work a bit harder. And I think, so we got the wool pulled over our eyes a little bit, and we made some mistakes. But like everything, I think you learn from mistakes. And if you're not prepared to make mistakes in life, whether that be business or in your personal life, then you're not going to learn anything, because you learn by making mistakes. And I think this is quite important. And I learned from this experience, and I think I enjoyed it. I don't regret it. I look back and I enjoyed it, but I won't be rushing back into it. Success brings many things, I think, but above all, you got to make sure even if you're successful, you still got to make sure you're enjoying it. Enjoying what you're doing is very important. And as I said to you before, if you don't enjoy what you're doing, then you need to change something. But success also gives you financial independence as well.
Right.
Financial independence to do what you want to do, to travel where you want to do, to look after the family. I have no qualms. My daughters wanted to go to a certain university because of what I have achieved. That could be done, and I think that's also part of what we are working for, is to make sure we have the freedom to do what we want, the freedom to travel, the freedom to make those quick decisions, and without having to worry financially. What I would say to anybody, to people, particularly young people, in their first or second jobs, in careers, is you don't focus all your effort just on that job and just on that career. You need other things. You need distractions from that, whether it be playing football for a local team, playing in a band and on a Friday night with friends, or etc. etc. You need those kind of things in your life, because that actually creates a diversion from it. It gives you energy. It keeps you alive and keeps you fresh. And I think it's very important to do that. And maybe you play tennis, or you play guitar, or whatever. But I think everybody needs something like that. If you just come home from work and you sit in front of a television and you have something to eat and you have a couple of beers and you think, where's the evening gone? Well, I can't do that. I have to go home. I have to do something, and I have to, maybe I practice a guitar, maybe I read a book, maybe I go for a walk, maybe I go and visit a friend or something like this. But I can't just come home and do nothing. I would probably say that my own success has surprised me. To be honest, I never set out in life to achieve certain things. I never said, look, by the time I was 30, I want to do this. By the time I was 35, I want to do this. By the time I was 40, it just happened. I was in the right place at the right time. I created those opportunities, and it went on from there. Definitely, whatever I'm doing, I want to put passion and energy into it. And whether that be, I talked about learning the guitar earlier on, I want to be putting passion and energy into achieving something. Whether it be whatever I want to do in life, I want to put passion and energy and do it to the best of my abilities. That's something that I want to always carry through what I'm doing in life. I'm not the sort of person that's going to, at the end of my career, sit in front of a television watching daytime TV roll by. That's not going to happen. I'm going to fill my days with stuff. I'm going to do it to the best of my ability. I have to be careful though, because I had many Skoda fans in India wanting to befriend me on Facebook. And I started befriending people. I thought this was great. And then they wanted to befriend my daughters, and my daughters didn't like that. So I had to say on Facebook and Twitter, sorry guys, I will. You can send me an instant message, I will respond, but please follow me on Twitter or follow me on LinkedIn, but not Facebook because my daughters felt a little bit uneasy with all these Indian guys, full of great intentions, I'm sure, befriending them on Facebook. My favorite drink is gin and tonic. I am getting quite
Okay.
into these specialist gins now that people are making, and that's what I tend to drink to relax at the moment. Sunset for sure. I think it would be, I wouldn't give you a brand because that would be unfair, but I think it would be a big pickup with a big engine that you can disappear off into the countryside and have some fun with bikes on the back and things like that. So that would be my thing.
Wonderful.
Probably be my road bikes. I've got some very nice bikes, expensive bikes, and unfortunately they're in Mumbai, so I can't enjoy them at the moment because they didn't have room on
Ah.
the plane to bring it back. But no, I would say my bikes are probably my favorite possession. Really hot, spicy food.
Ah. Oh no. What do you say?
Oh, I was in China, as you know, I was in China
Right.
for almost 4 years, and there are parts of China. If you go to places like Xi'an and Chengdu, where the food is very spicy, and there are chilies floating in everything, in the soups, in the everything. There are chilies in it, and literally, I would be sweating. And I used to think at the end of it, what is the point in this? I can't enjoy it. I'm just completely sweating. I had a school friend. I remember a school friend because I moved town when I was about 7 or 8.
Okay.
I moved town and I started a new school and picked up a school friend very early. Um, the thing is, I have to say, I'm guilty of not keeping in touch with people. My claim to fame is I actually sang karaoke at a karaoke bar in Pyongyang in North Korea. And there's not many people that can say that.
Oh wow, that's interesting.
I still
That
wasn't
was
very
fun.
good at karaoke, but I sang karaoke in a karaoke bar in
You
North
can
Korea.
do anything in a foreign land, can you? Can't you?
That's true, and nobody knows it doesn't sound so good.
Exactly.
Exactly. The birth of my children was probably one of the most
Ah,
priceless and memorable experiences of my life. When when a new life is created and you witness that new life being created,
right.
and then you realize that new life, how they grow up, how they behave in the world, what they achieve in the world, and whether they're a good human being or a bad human being, is down to how you influence them. I once owned a peacock called Archie.
Wow, what are you saying? Where was
He
this?
turned up in England. He turned up at my house one day. This peacock had quite a big garden with some chickens in it, and he turned up, and he never left. That's that.
Wow.
Another lesson on fact, because I don't do it anymore, is that I used to compete in clay pigeon shooting. I was quite good at clay pigeon shooting. I competed
Wow.
in local events for clay pigeon shooting, and I used to do a lot of hunting and fishing and shooting and things like this. And when I met my wife, she kind of wasn't so keen on these hobbies, so I moved to clay pigeon shooting and got quite good at it. So there's a third one for you. In business, I'm a passionate, energy-driven leader, but I'm also enjoying myself. And if I stop enjoying myself, then I will change things.